The fleet that gathered at the edge of Zarathi space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from dozens of liberated worlds floated together in formation. There were sleek coalition vessels, angular Catharian fighters, and strange, organic-looking ships from races that had been enslaved for generations. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Black Star, watching the massive fleet assemble on his main screen. 500 ships in total, all following the lead of his single human vessel. "I never thought I'd see something like this," Fletcher said quietly. "Neither did I," Jake replied. "Chang, what's the status of our communication network?" "All ships are connected through the Black Star's coordination system. The computer is translating between 47 different languages in real time." Martinez shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, this ship could barely fight 6 enemy vessels. Now it's commanding an entire fleet. The target was the Zarathi home system, protected by over 500 enemy warships and countless defense platforms. Intelligence reports said the War Queen's palace was on the 3rd planet, surrounded by layers of shields and weapons that had never been breached. "Commander," came a voice over the radio. It was Captain Vex of the Catharian Resistance. "My pilots are ready. We owe the Zarathi 20 years of suffering." Similar messages came from ships across the fleet. Every captain had a story of loss and oppression. Today they would have their revenge. "All ships, this is Commander Morrison," Jake announced to the fleet. "You know what we're facing. The enemy has more ships and bigger weapons, but they don't have what we have." "What's that, Commander?" asked Captain Thorne from a coalition destroyer. "They don't have hope. They don't have the will to fight for something greater than themselves. Today we end their empire not just with weapons, but with the belief that freedom is stronger than fear." The fleet began moving toward the Zarathi home system. As they approached, long-range sensors detected the massive enemy fleet waiting for them. 512 enemy ships, Fletcher reported. They're arranged in defensive layers around the 3rd planet. Just like we expected. Chang began jamming their communications. "I want them blind and confused." The battle began when the first coalition ships engaged the outer defense ring. Energy beams and missiles filled space as 2 fleets clashed on a scale never seen before. But this wasn't the chaotic free-for-all the Zarathi expected. The Black Star's computer coordinated every ship in the Liberation Fleet, turning hundreds of individual vessels into a single weapon. "Catharian fighters attack the left flank," Jake ordered. "Coalition heavy cruisers provide covering fire. Vegan ships hit their supply vessels." Each alien race used their unique strengths while following the overall battle plan. The fast Catharian ships darted between enemy formations. The heavily armored coalition vessels absorbed enemy fire while dealing massive damage in return. The mysterious Vegan ship seemed to know where the enemy would be before they moved. "Their formation is breaking," Fletcher observed as the outer defense ring began to collapse. But the Zarathi weren't finished. Their second line was stronger, with newer ships and better weapons. The battle became more intense as the Liberation Fleet pushed deeper into the system. "We're taking heavy losses," Martinez reported. 43 ships destroyed, over 100 damaged. Jake watched good ships die on his screen, each one representing dozens of brave souls who would never see their homes again. But they were getting closer to the planet. "Commander," Chang called out urgently, "I'm detecting massive energy readings from the planet's surface. They're charging some kind of super weapon." On the main screen, Jake could see a beam of pure energy rising from the War Queen's palace. It was targeting the largest coalition ship in the fleet. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Jake ordered. But it was too late. The energy beam struck the coalition dreadnought and vaporized it instantly. 3,000 crew members died in a flash of light. "They have a planet killer," Fletcher said grimly. "We can't get close while that weapon is active." Jake stared at the enemy planet, thinking furiously. The superweapon was too powerful for any ship to survive. But maybe they didn't need to survive. "Martinez, can you overload our engine core?" "Commander, if we overload the engine, how big would the explosion be?" Martinez understood immediately. "Big enough to destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers. "Including that weapon?" "Yes, but it would also destroy us." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. These people had become family during their long campaign. The thought of losing them hurt worse than any enemy weapon. There has to be another way, Fletcher said. Chang suddenly looked up from her station. Commander, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet. It's not from the Zarathi. Put it through. A new voice came over the speakers, speaking broken Coalition standard. Human ship, this is the underground resistance on Zarathi Prime. We have been waiting for this day. Jake's heart leaped. How many of you are there? Thousands. We have been preparing for years. The superweapon has a weakness. Its power source is in the lower levels of the palace. Can you reach it? Yes, but we need a distraction. Something to draw the palace guards away. Jake smiled. We can provide a distraction. The final phase of the battle was the most desperate. While the fleet engaged the remaining Zarathi ships, a small force of liberation vessels began bombing the palace shields. It looked like a frontal assault, exactly what the palace guards expected. The Zarathi sent their reserve forces to defend the palace, leaving the lower levels lightly guarded. Underground fighters moved through maintenance tunnels and service corridors, fighting their way toward the superweapon's power core. The weapon is charging again, Chang reported. Targeting our flagship. Hold position, Jake ordered, even as the deadly beam began forming above the palace. Then the underground fighters reached their target. The power core exploded in a chain reaction that sent shockwaves through the entire palace complex. The superweapon died before it could fire. Now, Jake ordered, all ships attack the palace. The combined fleet concentrated its fire on the War Queen's stronghold. Shields that had protected the Zarathi ruler for decades failed under the assault. The palace walls cracked, then crumbled. In the depths of the ruined palace, War Queen Sektar felt her empire dying around her. Her fleets were scattered, her worlds in rebellion, her palace destroyed. For the first time in her life, she felt fear. A human soldier appeared in her throne room, weapon raised. Behind him came fighters from a dozen different races, all united in their hatred of Zarathi tyranny. Your empire is finished, the human said. The War Queen's compound eyes glowed with rage, but she knew it was true. The Zarathi Empire was dead. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. The tyrants who had enslaved entire worlds were defeated. The USS Black Star and its liberation fleet had done the impossible. On the bridge of the Black Star, Jake Morrison looked out at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a single ship and 4 crew members. It had ended with the liberation of half the galaxy. Commander, Fletcher said, we're receiving surrender messages from Zarathi fleets in 12 systems. Chang, open a channel to all ships in our fleet. When the channel was open, Jake spoke to the hundreds of vessels that had followed him into battle. This is Commander Morrison. The war is over. The Zarathi Empire has fallen. You fought bravely, and you fought for something worthy. Today, freedom won. The cheers that came over the radio were in dozens of languages, but they all meant the same thing. Hope had triumphed over fear. Liberty had defeated tyranny. As the USS Black Star began its journey home, its adaptive systems continued to learn and grow. But now they were learning about peace instead of war, cooperation instead of conflict. The ship that had entered the war as an experiment had become something greater. It was proof that any challenge could be overcome with courage, creativity, and the refusal to surrender. The galaxy would remember the USS Black Star not just as a weapon of war, but as a symbol of what free people could accomplish when they stood together against darkness. The war was over, but the legend had just begun. The alarm bells screamed through the control room at Kepler Station. Lieutenant Danny Wells jumped from his chair and stared at the bright red lights flashing across his screen. His coffee cup fell to the floor with a crash, but he did not notice. Commander Morrison, you need to see this right now, Danny called out, his voice shaking. Commander Jake Morrison walked quickly to Danny's station. Jake was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been watching the empty space around Kepler for 15 years. Nothing exciting ever happened here. But today was different. What do you have, Wells? Jake asked. Danny pointed at his screen. with a trembling finger. "Sir, we're picking up a ship signature, but it's impossible. The computer says it's the Liberty Bell." Jake felt his blood turn cold. The Liberty Bell was a name every person in the space fleet knew. It was the ship that had vanished 50 years ago with 300 people on board. The ship that had been humanity's pride and hope for reaching the far stars. The ship that had simply disappeared without sending even one message back to Earth. "Run. The scan again," Jake ordered. "There has to be a mistake." Danny's fingers moved fast over his controls. The scan ran again. The same result came back. Energy signature matched. Ship size matched. Everything matched the Liberty Bell perfectly. "Sir, it's really there," Danny whispered. "The Liberty Bell is back." Jake grabbed his communication device. His hands were shaking as he called Admiral Lisa Grant on Earth. The connection took several minutes to go through. When Lisa's face appeared on the screen, she looked tired. It was late night on Earth. "Jake, this better be important," Lisa said, with a yawn. "Admiral, we have a situation. The Liberty Bell just appeared in our sector." Lisa's tired look vanished instantly. She sat up straight in her chair. "That's not possible. The Liberty Bell has been gone for 50 years. I know how it sounds, but our scans don't lie. It's here, Admiral. It's really here." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her thinking hard. The Liberty Bell was more than just a lost ship. It was a symbol of humanity's first big failure in space. 300 families had lost loved ones when it disappeared. The whole human race had mourned. "I'm sending the Horizon to your location," Lisa finally said. "Don't approach the ship until we get there. We don't know what happened to it or why it came back." "Yes, Admiral. And Jake, if this is real, it changes everything." The call ended. Jake looked back at Danny's screen. The Liberty Bell was still there, floating in the darkness like a ghost from the past. But something was wrong with the way it looked. The ship was glowing with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. 2 days later, the TDF Horizon arrived at Kepler Station. Admiral Lisa Grant was on board with her best team of scientists and soldiers. Captain Ben Parker led the group that would board the Liberty Bell. Ben was a good man and a brave soldier, but Jake could see he was nervous. "Remember, we don't know what we're going to find in there," Lisa told the boarding team. "The crew might be dead. They might be alive but changed, or there might be something else entirely waiting for us." Ben nodded. "We'll be careful, Admiral." The boarding shuttle flew slowly toward the Liberty Bell. As they got closer, everyone could see that the ship had been changed. Strange crystal formations grew along its hull like metal plants. The blue light was stronger now, and it seemed to move through the crystals like water. "I've never seen anything like this," whispered Dr. Amy Walsh, the team's science expert. "The energy readings are off the charts." Ben guided the shuttle to the Liberty Bell's docking bay. The bay doors opened by themselves as they approached. Inside, the lights were on and the air was good to breathe. Everything worked perfectly, as if the ship had never been gone. The boarding team walked through corridors that looked nothing like the original Liberty Bell. The walls were covered with the same crystal formations they had seen outside. The crystals pulsed with soft light and seemed to respond to their footsteps. When Amy reached out to touch one, it grew brighter. "Don't touch anything," Ben warned. "We don't know if it's safe." They made their way to the bridge. What they found there made everyone stop and stare. Captain Roy Jensen sat in his command chair, looking exactly the same as he had 50 years ago. His crew was at their stations, all of them young and healthy and unchanged by time. Roy looked up when they entered. His eyes were different now. They seemed to hold deep knowledge and secrets that no human should know. He smiled at Ben and the boarding team. "Welcome aboard the Liberty Bell," Roy said calmly. "We've been expecting you." Ben stepped forward carefully. "Captain Jensen? Is it really you?" "Yes, Ben. Though I'm not quite the same man who left Earth 50 years ago. Where have you been? What happened to your ship? How are you still alive?" Roy stood up slowly. The crystals around the bridge grew brighter as he moved. "We found something out there in the deep space. Or maybe it found us. We learned things that humans were never meant to know. Amy pushed past Ben. The energy readings from your ship are impossible. This technology is centuries ahead of anything we have. Roy's smile grew wider. The beings who taught us are very old, Dr. Walsh. They've been watching the galaxy for millions of years. They chose us to be their students. Who chose you? Ben demanded. What beings? Roy looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. We call them the architects. They live in a place between dimensions. They've been waiting for a species like humanity to come along. Why humanity? Why not the Corvani or the Zinthari? They're more advanced than we are. Because they stopped growing, Roy said sadly. They became stuck in their old ways of thinking. But humans still dream. Humans still change. That's what the architects were looking for. Ben felt fear growing in his chest. The galactic empires were already suspicious of humanity. If they learned that humans had been given advanced technology by unknown aliens, there would be war. Captain Jensen, you need to come with us. Earth needs to know what happened to you. Roy shook his head. We can't leave the Liberty Bell. We're part of it now and it's part of us. But don't worry. Soon, others will understand. Before Ben could ask what he meant, alarms began ringing throughout the galaxy. The Corvani military detected the Liberty Bell's energy signature, the Zenthari. Computers analyzed its impossible technology. The Velthara psychics felt its presence like a disturbance in the force of the universe. In 3 different parts of the galaxy, 3 different empires came to the same conclusion. Humanity had gained power that threatened the natural order of things. And that could not be allowed to continue. The Liberty Bell floated peacefully in space, its crystal hull pulsing with ancient light. Inside, Roy Jensen and his crew waited patiently for what would come next. They knew that their return would change everything. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for that change. The age of the great empires was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin. Dr. Amy Walsh had not slept in 3 days. She sat in her laboratory on the space station, staring at readings that made no sense. Every time she scanned the Liberty Bell, her instruments showed different results. The ship seemed to change itself while she was watching. This is impossible, she whispered to herself for the 100th time. Her assistant, Dr. Kevin Brooks, brought her another cup of coffee. Kevin was young and smart, but even he looked confused by what they were seeing. The power readings are still climbing, Kevin said. The ship is generating more energy than a small star. But there's no fuel source we can detect. Amy rubbed her tired eyes. It's not using fuel as we understand it. Look at these quantum readings. The ship is pulling energy from somewhere else, somewhere we can't even see. On the main screen, they watched as the Liberty Bell floated in space. The crystal formations on its hull were growing larger. New patterns appeared every few hours, spreading across the metal like living art. Dr. Walsh, we're getting a call from Earth, Kevin said. Admiral Grant wants to speak with you. Amy activated the communication system. Admiral Lisa Grant's face appeared on the screen. Lisa looked as tired as Amy felt. Doctor, what can you tell me about that ship? Lisa asked. Admiral, I've been studying alien technology for 20 years. This isn't alien technology, this is something completely different. The principles it operates on don't exist in our physics books. Explain it to me in simple terms. Amy took a deep breath. Imagine you've been using candles your whole life. Then someone shows you electricity. That's the difference between our technology and what's on the Liberty Bell. Lisa was quiet for a moment. How far ahead of us is it? Centuries, maybe thousands of years, but that's not the strangest part. The ship is alive, Admiral. It responds to thoughts and emotions. It's not just a machine anymore. Are you saying the ship is thinking? I'm saying the ship and its crew have become something new, something we don't understand. The call ended, and Amy went back to her studies, but she wasn't the only one trying to understand what had happened to the Liberty Bell. Captain Roy Jensen finally agreed to meet with a special committee. Representatives from Earth, the Corvani Empire, the Zenthari Collective, and the Velthara Dominion all came to hear his story. They met in a conference room on the space station. Roy looked exactly as he had 50 years ago, but his presence filled the room in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from very far away. "You want to know where we've been?" Roy said, looking at each person in turn. "We've been to a place that exists between the spaces you know. A place where beings older than your civilizations make their home." General Marcus Stone, representing Earth's military, leaned forward. "What kind of beings?" "They call themselves the Architects. They've been watching the galaxy for millions of years. They've seen species rise and fall like waves on a beach. They've seen empires that thought they would last forever crumble to dust." The Corvani representative, War Commander Thekvar, slammed his fist on the table. "Lies. No species is older than the Corvani Empire." Roy smiled sadly. "The Corvani Empire is 12,000 years old. The Architects are 12 million years old. To them you are children playing with toys." Ambassador Zenthri of the Zenthari Collective spoke in her mechanical voice. "These Architects, why did they choose humans? We have superior technology and intelligence." "Because you stopped learning," Roy replied. "Your technology is advanced, but it hasn't truly changed in thousands of years. You perfect what you know, instead of discovering what you don't know." The Valthara representative, Mind Speaker Valandra, tried to read Roy's thoughts. She gasped and pulled back as if she had been burned. "What did you see in there?" General Stone asked. Valandra's voice shook when she answered. "Infinity. I saw the space between stars where impossible things live. I saw beings of pure thought, who have forgotten what it means to have bodies. I saw the deep." Roy nodded. "The deep is where the Architects live. It's a place where consciousness becomes reality, and reality becomes consciousness. They brought us there because humanity still dreams. We still imagine new possibilities." "What did they teach you?" General Stone asked. "They showed us how the universe really works, how energy and matter and thought are all the same thing in different forms, how consciousness can shape reality if you understand the right principles." The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking about what this meant. If humans could control reality with their thoughts, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? War Commander Thekvar was the first to speak. "This threatens the natural order. Humans cannot be allowed to have such power." Ambassador Zenthri agreed. "The balance of the galaxy depends on known variables. This technology introduces too many unknowns." Roy looked at them with pity. "You're afraid because you think we want to rule over you. But ruling over others is a small dream. The Architects taught us to dream bigger dreams." "What kind of dreams?" General Stone asked. "Dreams where everyone grows together. Dreams where the strong help the weak become stronger. Dreams where intelligence serves wisdom instead of pride." After the meeting, representatives from the 3 galactic empires met in secret. They all agreed on one thing. Humanity had become too dangerous to ignore. Meanwhile on Earth, news of the Liberty Bell spread quickly. Some people were excited about the possibilities. Others were afraid of what might happen when the alien empires learned the truth. Dr. Paul Carter, Earth's Secretary of Xenorelations, received urgent messages from all 3 empires. They wanted answers about human intentions. They wanted guarantees that the new technology would not be used against them. They wanted reassurance that the balance of power would not change. Paul knew he could not give them what they wanted. The truth was that humanity was changing in ways that even humans did not fully understand. The crew of the Liberty Bell was just the beginning. On the Liberty Bell itself, Roy Jensen stood on the bridge watching the stars. His crew worked around him, but they moved differently now. They seemed to float rather than walk. Their eyes held the same deep knowledge that Roy's eyes held. "Captain," said his first officer, Commander Helen Price, "we're receiving transmission from the 3 empires. They're demanding we share our technology with them." Roy shook his head. "They wouldn't understand it even if we tried to explain. This knowledge can't be given. It can only be earned through growth and change. What about the humans on Earth? Shouldn't we help them?" "We will help them when they're ready. But first, they need to choose what kind of species they want to become. The Architects won't force wisdom on anyone." Helen looked worried. "The empires are mobilizing their fleets. They see us as a threat." Roy's expression grew sad. Fear makes people do terrible things, but fear also forces growth. Sometimes you have to break before you can become something better. Are we going to fight them? No, Helen. We're going to teach them, whether they want to learn or not. In the depths of space, 3 massive fleets began moving toward human territory. The Corvani brought their strongest warships. The Zenthari loaded their most advanced weapons. The Velthara gathered their most powerful psychics. They all believed they were protecting the galaxy from a human threat. They did not understand that they were about to become students in a lesson they never wanted to learn. The Liberty Bell pulsed with ancient light, and somewhere in the deep, the architects watched and waited. The galaxy was about to change forever. War Admiral Theknor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fang. Around him, 200 Corvani warships moved through space like hungry wolves. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Together, they formed the most powerful battle fleet the Corvani Empire had ever assembled. Target is the human colony at New Geneva, Theknor announced to his crew. We destroy the colony and capture the strange ship. The humans will learn what happens when they threaten the natural order. His weapons officer, Commander Graktu, looked at the battle plans. Admiral, intelligence reports say the Liberty Bell has only 1 ship. Should we not send a smaller force? Theknor's eyes burned with anger. Fool, this is not about 1 ship. This is about showing the galaxy that the Corvani Empire will not tolerate threats. We go with full force to make sure everyone understands. The Corvani fleet dropped out of hyperspace near New Geneva. The human colony was small and peaceful. Farms and research stations dotted the planet's surface. Only a few defense satellites protected it from attack. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the colony. The communications officer reported. Put it through, Theknor ordered. Governor Sarah Martinez appeared on the main screen. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, but her voice was steady and calm. Corvani Fleet, this is Governor Martinez of New Geneva. You are in violation of galactic law by bringing military forces into our territory. Please state your intentions. Theknor laughed coldly. Human, we are here to collect the ship called Liberty Bell. Surrender it to us, and your colony will be spared. The Liberty Bell is not ours to give. It belongs to Captain Jensen and his crew. They are free to make their own choices. Then, you have chosen destruction, Theknor said, cutting the transmission. He was about to order the attack when his sensor officer called out in alarm. Admiral, new contact, it's the Liberty Bell. On the main screen, the mysterious human ship appeared like magic. One moment there was empty space, the next moment the Liberty Bell was there, floating between the Corvani fleet and New Geneva. How? Did it get there so fast? Graktu whispered. Theknor stared at the strange ship with its glowing crystals and impossible design. It doesn't matter. All ships, open fire. Destroy that vessel. 200 Corvani warships fired at once. Energy. Beams and missiles filled the space around the Liberty Bell. The firepower was enough to crack a planet's crust. But when the weapons reached the human ship, something impossible happened. The Liberty Bell absorbed every shot. The crystal formations on its hull grew brighter as they drank in the energy from the Corvani weapons. None of the attacks did any damage at all. Impossible, Theknor roared. Fire again, all weapons. The second attack was even stronger than the first. But again, the Liberty Bell simply absorbed the energy. The ship seemed to grow more beautiful with each attack, its crystals pulsing with captured power. Inside the Liberty Bell, Captain Roy, Jensen sat calmly in his command chair. His crew worked around him with the same peaceful expressions they always wore. Captain, should we return fire? Asked Commander Helen Price. Roy shook his head. Not yet. Let them understand that their weapons cannot hurt us. Fear will make them think more clearly than anger. On the Iron Fang, panic was beginning to spread. The Corvani had never faced an enemy their weapons could not damage. Their entire military strategy was based on overwhelming firepower. Admiral, what are your orders? Graktu asked nervously. Theknor's pride would not let him retreat. Ramming speed, if we can't shoot it, we'll crush it. The Iron Fang accelerated toward the Liberty Bell. The massive Corvani flagship was built like a fortress, designed to smash through enemy defenses. But as it approached the human ship, the Liberty Bell began to move. It didn't fly like normal ships. Instead, it flowed through space like liquid light. The Iron Fang's ramming attack passed harmlessly through empty space as the Liberty Bell danced around it. "Where did it go?" Theknor demanded. "Behind us, Admiral," the sensor officer replied with fear in his voice. The Liberty Bell had appeared directly behind the Corvani flagship. Roy Jensen's voice came through the communication system, calm and sad. "Admiral Theknor, you have shown us your strength. Now let us show you ours." The Liberty Bell released a single pulse of energy. It was not a weapon in any way, the Corvani understood. Instead of trying to destroy, the pulse reached out to every ship in the fleet and simply turned off their engines. 200 Corvani warships suddenly found themselves floating helplessly in space. Their weapons were offline, their shields were down, their engines were dead. But their life support systems still worked perfectly. No one was hurt. "What have you done to us?" Theknor demanded. Roy's voice was gentle when he answered. "We have removed your ability to cause harm. Your crews are safe, your ships are undamaged, but you cannot use them to hurt others. This is impossible. No technology can disable our entire fleet without destroying it. Your technology sees only destruction and creation. Ours sees the space between. We can touch the parts of your ships that you don't even know exist." Theknor felt something he had never experienced before: complete helplessness. The Corvani way of life was built on being the strongest, the most feared. Now a single human ship had made his entire fleet useless, without firing a single destructive shot. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Commander Lisa Hayes of the Zenthari Collective was taking a different approach. Instead of attacking, she led a diplomatic mission to Earth. Lisa was not like other Zenthari. While most of her people had replaced their biological parts with machines, she kept her original face and hands. She believed that diplomacy worked better when others could see real expressions. Her ship, the Logic Prime, arrived at Earth peacefully. She requested a meeting with Earth's leaders to discuss technological cooperation. Dr. Paul Carter met with her in the old United Nations building in New York. The room had been rebuilt after the Corvani attack on Earth 30 years ago. Now it served as humanity's center for alien relations. "Commander Hayes, welcome to Earth," Paul said politely. Lisa's mechanical eye scanned Paul while her biological eye studied his face. "Dr. Carter, we come seeking partnership. The Zenthari Collective wishes to learn from human advances." "What kind of partnership do you have in mind?" "Technology exchange. We share our computer systems and artificial intelligence. You share your new energy principles and consciousness-based technology." Paul chose his words carefully. "I appreciate your offer, Commander, but the technology you're asking about can't be shared in the way you think." "Explain." "It's not just knowledge that can be taught. It requires a change in the way you think about reality itself. It's like trying to explain color to someone who was born blind." Lisa's mechanical parts whirred as she processed this information. "Are you saying the technology cannot be reproduced?" "I'm saying it cannot be copied. It must be grown like a plant. And that growth requires the right conditions." The meeting continued for hours, but it ended with no agreement. Lisa left Earth frustrated and confused. The Zenthari way was to analyze, copy, and improve. They could not understand technology that required personal transformation. At the same time, far away in Vylthara space, High Seer Melandra was attempting something very dangerous. She gathered the most powerful psychics in the Dominion and tried to probe the minds of the Liberty Bell's crew. The Vylthara had always believed that consciousness was their domain. They could read thoughts, influence emotions, and even control weaker minds. Surely these humans, no matter how changed, could not resist their combined psychic power. Melandra and 12 other seers joined their minds together and reached across space toward the Liberty Bell. What they found there broke their understanding of the universe. The human minds were not just changed. They were connected to something vast and ancient that existed in dimensions the Vaelthara could not even perceive. When the seers tried to probe deeper, they touched the edge of the deep itself. The experience drove half of them insane instantly. They began babbling about watchers in the darkness and intelligence that spanned galaxies. Melandra herself survived, but she was forever changed. Her eyes now held the same distant knowledge that the Liberty Bell crew possessed. The humans, she whispered to the Vaelthara Council. They are not the students. They are becoming the teachers, and we are all children in their classroom. Back at New Geneva, the Corvani fleet still floated helplessly in space. Roy Jensen had opened communication channels to every ship, speaking directly to the crews. "Warriors of the Corvani Empire," he said. "You came here believing that strength meant the power to destroy. But true strength is the power to protect and build. We offer you a choice. Learn from us, and we will restore your ships. Continue to threaten others, and you will float here until you change your minds." Admiral Theknor's pride warred with his practicality. His empire expected him to return victorious. But he was beginning to understand that victory against these humans was impossible using traditional methods. The galaxy was changing whether the old empires wanted it to or not, and humanity was at the center of that change. The battle for Earth began at exactly 1432 Galactic Standard Time on a Tuesday. 3 million alien warships opened fire on the human fleet all at once. The amount of energy released in that first moment was enough to light up an entire star system. But the battle did not end the way anyone expected. In fact, it barely lasted 17 minutes. Captain Roy Jensen sat calmly on the bridge of the Liberty Bell as enemy fire filled the space around his ship. The crystal formations on the hull absorbed the attacks and grew brighter, just as they had during the Corvani attack at New Geneva. But this time, something different happened. "Helen, begin the transformation protocol," Roy said to his first officer. Commander Helen Price nodded and placed her hands on what looked like crystal controls. "All human ships, activate your connection to the deep. It's time to teach our lesson." Across the human fleet, 2,000 upgraded ships began to change. Their hulls started to glow with the same blue light as the Liberty Bell. Strange patterns appeared on their surfaces, spreading like living circuits. The ships themselves seemed to come alive. Admiral Vorthak watched from his command ship as the human vessels transformed before his eyes. "What are they doing? Why aren't our weapons damaging them?" Admiral Zektron's computers were working frantically to analyze what they were seeing. Unknown technology detected. Energy patterns do not match any known physics. Recommend immediate retreat. But it was too late for retreat. The Liberty Bell moved forward through the storm of enemy fire like it was swimming through water. Behind it, the upgraded human ships followed in perfect formation. They were not flying anymore. They were flowing. High Seer Melandra felt what was about to happen before anyone else did. Her psychic abilities, changed by her contact with the Liberty Bell's crew, could sense the enormous forces gathering around the human fleet. "They're not going to destroy us," she whispered in amazement. "They're going to change us." The transformation began with the closest enemy ships. The Liberty Bell reached out with invisible fingers of energy that touched the Corvani vessels first, but instead of destroying them, the energy began to merge with their systems. Admiral Vorthak felt his ship shudder as new technology grew throughout its hull. "Damage report," he shouted. "No damage, Admiral," his engineering officer replied, in confusion. "But our systems are changing. New components are appearing throughout the ship. Our engines are more powerful. Our shields are stronger." The same thing was happening throughout the Corvani fleet. Ships that had been designed only for war suddenly found themselves equipped with technology that could heal as well as harm. Weapons that could only destroy were transformed into tools that could build and create. The Zenthari ships experienced the change differently. Their advanced computers suddenly gained new capabilities they had never imagined. Artificial intelligences that had been limited to logical thinking began to understand emotions and creativity. Ships that had been cold machines became warm partners to their crews. Commander Lisa Hayes watched in wonder as her ship, the Logic Prime, transformed around her. The hull is growing new sections. The computer systems are evolving. It's like the ship is learning to dream. The Valthara experienced the most dramatic change of all. Their psychic abilities, which had been limited to their own species, suddenly expanded to connect with all consciousness in the area. They could feel the thoughts and emotions of every being in the battle, creating a web of understanding that spanned the entire fleet. High Seer Melandra gasped as her mind touched the vast network of consciousness that the human technology created. For the first time, she could feel what it was like to be Corvani or Xanthari or human. The barriers between species dissolved, replaced by understanding. "Admiral Vorthak," she called across the communication channels. "Can you feel it? Can you feel what it's like to think the way other species think?" The Corvani admiral was experiencing something that challenged everything he believed about strength and weakness. Through the new connection, he could feel the fear and hope of human families on Earth. He could understand the logical beauty of Xanthari thinking. He could sense the deep wisdom of Valthara psychic traditions. "This is impossible," he said, but his voice lacked its usual anger. "How can I feel what others feel?" Roy Jensen's voice came through the communication system, speaking to all 3 million ships at once. "You can feel it because consciousness is what connects all life in the universe. The architects taught us that separation is an illusion. We are all part of the same great pattern." Admiral Zektron's logical mind was struggling to process what was happening. "The technology is rewriting our understanding of reality itself. This is not just an upgrade. This is evolution." As the transformation spread through the massive fleet, something beautiful began to happen. Ships that had come to destroy Earth started working together to protect it. Corvani warships used their new abilities to shield human colonies from cosmic radiation. Xanthari vessels began sharing their enhanced computer power to solve problems that no single species could handle alone. Valthara ships created networks of understanding that allowed perfect cooperation between former enemies. The Yar battle was over, but no one had won or lost in the traditional sense. Instead, everyone had gained something greater than victory. They had gained understanding. Fleet Admiral Greg Thompson watched from the new horizon as former enemies became partners in the space around Earth. "I've never seen anything like this," he said to Colonel Janet Fox. "Yesterday they wanted to destroy us. Today they're working to protect us." "The technology didn't just upgrade their ships," Janet replied. "It upgraded their souls." 3 days after the battle, representatives from all 4 species met on Earth's surface. They gathered in a new building that had been constructed in just hours using the combined technology of all their civilizations. The building seemed to grow from the ground like a living tree, its walls made of crystal and metal and energy all woven together. Captain Roy Jensen stood before the assembled delegates from across the galaxy. Behind him, through a great window, they could see ships from all 4 species working together to build humanity's first interstellar research station. "The architects told us that intelligence without wisdom leads to destruction," Roy said. "But wisdom shared freely leads to growth that benefits everyone. Today we begin a new age for our galaxy." Admiral Vorthak, still struggling with his transformed understanding, asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "What happens now? Our empires were built on the idea that some species are stronger than others. If we're all equal, what does that mean for our civilizations?" Roy smiled the gentle smile that had become familiar to everyone who had encountered the changed humans. "It means your empires don't have to fall. They just have to grow. The Corvani can teach us about courage and honor. The Xanthari can show us the beauty of logic and precision. The Valthara can guide us in understanding the deeper connections between all things." High Seer Melandra spoke next, her voice filled with the wisdom she had gained from touching the deep. "And humanity will teach us all how to dream of better tomorrows." The meeting lasted for hours, but by the end, they had created something that had never existed before, a truly cooperative galactic civilization. The old empires remained, but they were transformed by their new understanding. Competition became collaboration. Conquest became construction. Fear became curiosity. The Liberty Bell became the flagship of this new age, traveling between star systems as a symbol of what was possible when intelligence served wisdom instead of pride. Captain Jensen and his crew continued to serve as teachers, but they were no longer alone. Every species that encountered the new technology began to produce their own teachers and guides. Years later, when historians tried to understand how the galaxy had changed so quickly, they always returned to the same simple truth. The missing Earth vessel had returned with more than just impossible technology. It had brought home the knowledge that the universe was big enough for everyone to grow together. And in the space between dimensions, the architects watched their newest students with satisfaction. The galaxy had learned its most important lesson. The true strength came not from standing above others, but from lifting others up to stand beside you. The age of empires was ending. The age of understanding had begun.